Hello everyone, it's been a while. It's Rochelle from Monteroche. Today I'll be doing a January wrap up because I read quite a lot of books in January. It's just that it all happened in the first 2 weeks of January. The next 2 weeks after, I haven't read much. So, yeah, let me just show you what I finished reading and books that I started or continued reading but didn't finish yet. So, let's begin with the first two books that I read in January. I reread It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I read this when it first came out, well, a few weeks after it came out back in 2016, I believe, and I really enjoyed it. Now that I reread it, I still enjoyed it, but not as much as the first time. It's very popular on Book Talk, and it was popular back then as well, but it blew up because of TikTok. So I was like, you know what, since there's another book in this series, I decided to reread it and purchase the next book, which is It Starts With Us. I actually thought this was a prequel, so I was like, okay. But then when I reread It Ends With Us, I'm like, there's already a lot of flashback in that one that I don't know what this is going to add, but I'm glad that this is actually a sequel and not a prequel. And I read some reviews about this, and a lot of them didn't enjoy the fact that nothing really is happening and that, you know, it's just portraying Atlas as this really great guy. But I actually really enjoyed it because after that, the ending of It Ends With Us, I wanted to just spend more time with the characters. So even though there's not much happening here, that even though it's not, this book wasn't necessary, I still really enjoyed it because I got to spend more time with the characters. After I read those two, I was in the mood for another Colleen Hoover book, so I decided to reread my favorite book by Colleen Hoover, and that's Ugly Love. I remember really enjoying this, that even though I loved It Ends With Us back then, this was still my favorite. And unfortunately, after my reread, I just didn't enjoy it at all. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I had some problems with it. I didn't like the insta love. I don't know, I guess because over the course of, you know, the past few years between the first time I read this and now, I read so many similar romance stories like this one that now that I reread it, I'm kind of tired of reading this type of story, this types of characters. So I think that's why I didn't enjoy this as much. But you know what? I'm still going to remember the first time I read this and how I enjoyed it. I guess it just shows that your opinion about a book could change when you get older. So you could love a book so much when you're a teenager, but then later on when you read it again, you either still love it or completely hate it. Then I wanted to read another Colleen Hoover book that I haven't read but owned, and that's Confess by Colleen Hoover. I thought I haven't read this, but then I check on Goodreads. I actually listened to the audiobook several years ago, but I'm not an audiobook kind of person, so I guess I didn't pay much attention to the story back then, so I don't remember much. And I read it and I actually enjoyed it. Not my favorite, but it was still a good read. It was still entertaining at the moment and a quick read as well. So I think I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, or 3.5 or so. Then I read the hype book on TikTok, and that's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this is my first Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and I enjoyed it so much. Like, after reading like the first chapter, I'm like, I couldn't stop reading, and everything was just so interesting. The reason why I only picked this up now is because I was scared that the hype was going to ruin it for me. And after reading the premise, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it. I don't want to waste my money. After I bought this for $30, and I tried several times to read it, and I just can't. I can't with this book. But I didn't want that to happen with this book. But you know what? I finally gave it a shot, and I'm glad I did, because this was really, really good. I enjoyed this one. And then I also read a classic. And that's The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And I also watched the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire, and I enjoyed both. Not my favorite classic, but I understand why a lot of people enjoyed this book, and a lot of teachers teach this in their class, so I understand why. I guess I would love it more if I just listen to or take a course on it, and an actual teacher who loves this book teaches it to me, because I just don't have the time to learn the background, the context, and learn more about the history of this book, and learn more about the time period where the story is set, because I feel like that's important to know, so that when you read, you start to make connections between the events in this book and what was happening in that period of time. And since I don't, I'm not familiar with the 1920s, this kind of gave me an idea, but I think I would have enjoyed it more if I knew more about this time period and more about the people back then. So yeah, I think if I took a class during my 2-year English literature degree in college, I would have enjoyed this more than me reading it for fun and not really doing any research on it. So yeah, but it was still a good read. Then I read and finished a book that one of my students lent me, and that's Greek Gods by Rick Riordan. That one was an easy read. It just took me a while because of my schedule, but I finally finished it, and I'm glad I did, because I'm really interested in Greek mythology, but I'm just not really motivated to read all those big books about them. So I think it's a good idea to read a Rick Riordan book, because he tells the story of each god and goddesses in a more entertaining way, and in a funny way as well, and in a simple way also. So if you're into mythology but you don't know where to start, and you're intimidated by all those big encyclopedia or those big books about Greek mythology or Norse mythology, I recommend Rick Riordan books. Alright, I also read Get Out of My Head, or Get Out of Your Head by Jenny Allen, and that book was lent by my aunt, so I gave it back. That one, I really enjoyed it. I started it last December and I finished it in January. That was really good. I didn't expect it to be biblical, but I like the fact that it was biblical, because I'm starting to learn more about my faith, and that book just came into my life unexpectedly and at the right time as well, because like I said, I was trying to read the Bible, and in this book it provides advice on how to get out of your head, but it also makes connections with the scriptures. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. In terms of the books that I started reading or I continued reading, there's this one. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish this book. If I am going to finish it, it'll take a while. I'm currently on page 258, and this is a like 500 plus pages book. So I don't know, I'm not entertained, I'm bored, I don't care about the characters in this book, and the only reason I'm trying to finish it is because I spent 30 bucks on it. It's like I bought it with Confess and Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I bought it with all those other books. This one was the most expensive, and I just can't, like, it's giving me a hard time. I can't finish it for the life of me. I really tried. I wasn't even in a reading slump. I was like reading a lot of books for the first 2 weeks of January, and I just, like, I'm reading this and I was feeling like this was gonna put me in a reading slump, and I didn't want that to happen, so I just kept on just putting it down. So yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna finish this book. I also started reading Educated by Tara Westover. I'm currently on page 26, and yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. Don't know much yet. Currently we're talking about her mom, so I plan on finishing this in February, so hopefully I get to do that. So that's it for my January wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Right, bye.